My family always tried to get me to live to their strict religious guidelines, and I'll be honest, I fell in love with a girl who was not of my family's religion. They were not happy. They were very upset with the decision I've made, so I decided, hey, I love this woman. I'm going to leave my family behind because they can't open up their heart, and I'm going to cut them off for good. Guys, this might come with some consequences.
I'm Jason, and life was okay. I grew up in a strict Muslim family in the United States. My parents, Mr. and Mrs. Rothman, wanted me to follow all the Islamic rules, praying a bunch of times a day and not dating any girls who weren't Muslim. I did my best for a while, but as time went on, it got tough. I met Emma. Emma, this amazing woman, and she happened to be Christian. We fell in love, got married, and had 2 wonderful kids. That's when things got really complicated. One day, I had enough of my parents' constant pressure and threats to disown me if I did not obey to their religious rules. So, I moved out, cut off all contact. For 10 years, it was peaceful. 10 whole years. My wife and kids were my world, and I never looked back. But then, out of the blue, I get a call from an old family friend. She told me that my younger brother passed away, and it hit me like a ton of bricks. He was the only one who ever understood me in the family. With his death, I became the only heir to our family's vast fortune. And that's when the drama kicked in. My parents contacted me, threatening to disown me again unless I came back and followed their religious rules, which meant leaving my wife and kids behind. So, I blocked them. I knew deep down that they could not disown me because of religious rules, and I was okay with it. I'd built a life separate from them and their faith, and I was making enough money to take care of my family, but this drama was far from over. Now, call me a stupid, ungrateful son yet, but my bickering with my parents did not start then. They have always just known I was liberal and was never controlled by religion. I just wanted a good life. The first time my parents had destroyed my beautiful relationship, I almost, unalived myself. Yes, it was that bad. It was when I was in college. I met a girl, a wonderful girl named Sarah. She was the complete opposite of what my parents wanted for me. She was Christian, we fell in love, and for me she was perfect. And our love was genuine, but for my parents she was a threat to the carefully crafted beliefs that they had. I had to keep our relationship absolutely hidden. For months we met in secrecy, making sure no one from my family would find out, but secrets are hard to keep, and eventually my parents got wind of Sarah's existence in my life. I remember that day clearly. It was a family gathering, and Sarah was by my side as usual. My parents invited us for dinner at their place, and I was naive, thinking that they'd finally accept her, but it was a setup. As we sat around the dining table, things took a dark turn. My parents, fueled by their religion, went on a tirade against my relationship with Sarah. They publicly humiliated us and made us feel like sinners. It was cruel, embarrassing, and simply heartbreaking. My father, his eyes filled with fury, recited verses from the Quran, reminding me of my duty to marry a Muslim woman and maintain our faith. My mother wept, and she was on about the disgrace that we've brought upon the family. I looked at Sarah, and her eyes were wet with tears, but she stood by me. After everything, I knew it was over between Sarah and me. We left their house that night with our hearts heavy, but my love intact, but hers was shaky. I was left with a choice, and I made it. I promised Sarah I would never subject her to such torment again. She agreed reluctantly, and I began to do everything in my power to make her realize just how much I love her. But my parents did not let go. They kept pressuring me to leave Sarah, return to the fold, and abide by their rules. Our relationship became a battleground, and my parents on one side and Sarah and me on the other. As the battle raged on, I realized that the faith I'd grown up with was becoming a prison, and I needed to escape to protect the woman that I loved. So, I cut ties with my parents and their oppressive faith. I moved out, and Sarah, who can't bear to have me around her, broke every tie with me. It was heartbreaking at first, and I thought I would not survive it, but fortunately I did, and met another girl, Emma, who helped me heal from the torment I was made to pass through. But now the news of my brother's death had brought them back to me into my life. making the same old threats. They wanted me to leave Emma and my children behind and return to their faith. It was a conflict reignited, and I blocked them because I had learned to stand up for the love and family I've built outside the confines of their belief. A few weeks later, the death of my brother had cast a somber, heavy cloud upon my life. As much as I distanced myself from my parents, the loss of my only sibling was still a painful blow. It left me with a sense of guilt, knowing that we had not reconciled before he passed. But I could not have foreseen what would follow. The toll it took on my family was immense. The grief was overwhelming, and Emma, who had been my anchor throughout, felt the sadness too, but she stood by me. Our children, too young to fully comprehend the situation, could sense the tension. I knew it was time for me to face my parents once again, not for their sake, but for my own closure, even though I've cast them out of my life. With thought, I've blocked them off from my life completely. I received a call from my parents from a strange number. The moment I picked it up, I regretted doing so, as they weren't as remorseful as I wanted even with the death of their son. Their voices were laced with insincere condolences, but I knew that their true intentions were. They wanted to use my vulnerability against me because they knew how close I was to my brother. It was during that call that they hinted at their plan to take me away from my family, under the guise of, quote, bringing me back to my faith. But this time they had an even more sinister agenda. My parents threatened to destroy my successful business, the one that provided for Emma, our kids, and me, and they knew the power they held over my inheritance, and they were willing to use it as a weapon to tear me away from my loved ones. The words they spoke were venomous, laden with some religious righteousness that they had driven me away decades ago with. As I hung up the phone call, the enormity of the situation hit me. My business was more than just a means to make a living. It was a symbol of the life that we had built outside of the influence. My parents' plan could unravel everything that we worked so hard for. This was the torment I found myself facing. What choices should I make? It wasn't just about defying my parents, it was about protecting my family, my wife, and my children. As I sit here contemplating my next move, I seek advice from you, dear readers. What would you do in my shoes? How would you protect your family from those who seek to destroy everything you've ever built? I need your help, your suggestions, and your wisdom to navigate this treacherous waters ahead. Update number 1. The escalating tensions between my parents and me weighed heavily on my mind. To save the situation, my parents have dispatched my uncle, Ibrahim, as their final attempt to persuade me to return to the family. Among everyone in my family, Ibrahim was the only one I respected very much. Even with my first relationship with Sarah, he had tried to save me as the mediator between me and my growing conflict with my parents, but it had all failed. I could still remember when it had gotten so bad that I had been forced to sleep in his place as the house could not contain me and my dad. Well, but now was different. I won't allow the story of the past to change my future, and my heart ached as I knew I had to make a difficult choice. As soon as Ibrahim entered my home, I stilled myself and told him in no uncertain terms to leave and never return, as I was never going to come back in the family and they should do whatever it was they wanted to do. He was shocked, and I had refused to listen to him even with our history, but my mind was made up and I was not going to change it anytime soon. The room seemed to be cold as I closed the door behind me. It was a heartbreaking decision, but I could not let my parents jeopardize the life I've built for my wife and children. However, the fallout was more complicated than I had anticipated, and my wife, who had been the steadfast pillar of support, was hurt by the way that I had handled the situation with Ibrahim, knowing how good he had treated me while I was still with my family. I tried to make her understand it was necessary so that he would know I was now a man. But she wasn't having any of it, and this resulted in a hot argument. The first in our entire relationship, and added to the turmoil. The following weeks became a mirage, and it felt like a blur, and I was the stranger in it. In addition to the family conflict, my business began to suffer. My attention was divided, and the income that once flowed steadily began to dwindle. It was as if my life was spiraling out of control. I was resolute about maintaining my independence and protecting my family, but the mounting pressure threatened to overwhelm me. I knew I had to find out a way to navigate through these challenges, or everything I had worked for would be at risk. Determined to salvage my dwindling income, I decided to double my workload, take on every project that came my way, and it meant longer hours and less time with my family, but I could not afford to lose everything I worked so hard for. But then, a call came that shattered my resolve. The voice on the other end identified himself as Mr. Francis, and he made a shocking revelation. He claimed that my father owed him an exorbitant sum of money from betting. The sheer absurdity of this revelation hit me like a ton of bricks. Betting, gambling, and such activities were strictly against our faith, and my father had always abhorred them. As the weight of the $1 million debt Mr. Francis mentioned hung over me, I could not help but feel a sense of betrayal from my parents. It was yet another layer of deception and betrayal I had not anticipated. If this was true, then this was the major reason why my parents were hell-bent that I should have left my family and come home to take over the business. So, all this was really just to pay Dad's debt, huh? But wait. What if this was a plank for me to get back home and save the family? It was a conflicting situation. The turmoil within me was building, and the decisions I would soon have to make could potentially tear apart everything I held dear. Anyone listening right now, dear readers, I'm left with a state of disbelief and uncertainty, and I hope you'll join me for the next update as I navigate this new, treacherous chapter of my life. But first, I might be forced to do a private investigation and know what the hell is going on. Update number 2. Mr. Francis's call was yet to leave my mind, so to make it clear of burdens, I told my wife that I had a business meeting to attend over the weekend. It was the first time I would be leaving my family, and she reluctantly agreed, understanding the gravity of the situation. I left, not to enjoy a break or take a breather, but to unravel the truth behind Mr. Francis's claims. The weight of $1 million debt allegedly owed by my father gnawed at my conscience. It was a sum that could destroy everything I've built, and I could not let it linger as a shadow of doubt. I journeyed to the city my parents resided in. With a mixture of fear and determination, my mission was twofold. To confirm whether my father had indeed fallen into the abyss of betting, a vice that he had always condemned. To understand how deep this pit went, I did not tell my parents I was coming over. I was going to stay someplace far, but close enough to look deep into my findings and know what was going on. Readers, I'm at a crossroads, and your support and encouragement are more valuable to me than ever as I delve deeper into the mysteries of my family's past and present. Delving deeper into the investigations, I uncovered a painful truth. My father was indeed deeply involved in the world of betting, and he had not shown any signs of stopping. I picked up the job of trailing him always, and while I was unsuccessful at first, I finally got something. I followed him one day, and the trail led me to a clandestine gambler's den. A place I had never imagined my devout father would ever venture. Throughout the dimly lit, smoke-filled room, I watched in agony as he laughed and placed bets with recklessness. It was a grim sight to witness, but what even pained me more was seeing him lose. As the bet spiraled out of control, the holders of the place grabbed my father with their grip firm and unrelenting. Every fiber of my being screamed to intervene to rescue him from this pit of disgrace, but I forced myself to remain hidden. To continue my surveillance, I needed to gather all the evidence I could, to understand the extent of his involvement and determine the best course of action possible. My heart ached, torn between the love and concern I felt for my father and the knowledge that his actions were tearing apart the very fabric of our family. The truth was a bitter pill to swallow, and it was clear that confronting him about this revelation would not be easy. With the weight of my discoveries pressing down on me, I've reached a pivotal moment in this tumultuous journey. My father's secret life of gambling, debt, and deceit has shocked me to the core, and it's clear that I can no longer stand idly by. In the days ahead, I'm determined to reveal the truth to my family, no matter how much pain it might be. I've acknowledged that the road ahead is uncertain and fraught with emotional turmoil. As I've shared my story with you, dear readers, your support, advice, and understanding have been a beacon of light in these dark times. I turn to you once again, seeking your wisdom and guidance. How should I approach this delicate matter with my family? What steps can I take to ensure that the truth is revealed without causing further damage? Well, together, let's navigate these uncharted waters and strive a resolution for healing. Your words have been a source of strength. I will update soon. Update number 3. I returned to my family after over a week of investigations. Since my wife's worry had grown to a palpable level, she had even told my Uncle Ibrahim and had visited again, begging me to come back home. I knew it was time I got done with this and got back to my beautiful family who I was missing dearly. I summoned up the courage and went to my family's house the moment I walked through the door. My parents seemed genuinely happy to see me. During dinner, I could not hold back any longer. I revealed the truth about my discoveries and how I had found Dad deeply involved in gambling, and my heart sank. Mom, with a sense of disappointment in her eyes, implored me to forgive him, citing his struggle to overcome this vice. But I could not stay there. Not after everything I've learned, and with the new discovery that Mom was aware of his behavior. With a heavy heart, I told them that they should never contact me again, and that I was hugely disappointed in them for trying to manipulate me to stop my life, just to take over the family business and service the debts and reoccurring debts of my father before I stood and left the house. Well, the weight of that decision clung to me as I spent the night in a hotel. My heart was pounding, wondering what the future holds for my family. I returned to my wife, sharing everything that transpired with her. She too was disappointed by my family's secret and suggested that we should leave it all behind and start anew. Her unwavering support was comforting balm to my wounded soul. Back in my routine of daily life, I focused on my business, determined not to let my family's troubles overshadow my own life. Well, my parents and I, left to their fate and their own decisions, their path was one I could no longer influence. I felt a mix of sadness and a relief of this acceptance. Anyways, to those of you who shared your thoughts and wisdom throughout this journey, I'm grateful, very, very grateful for you. Your comments and advice have given me perspective during challenging times. Thank you. I will update again soon. Final update of the story. As life moved forward, my wife and I sat down to discuss the situation with my parents. It was her wisdom that guided us to a compassionate decision. We decided to provide them with some financial support, sending a weekly sum that would cover their basic needs and help alleviate their debt. In this act of so-called charity, we hope to ease their lives without entirely reconciling with the hurtful past. It was a gesture of empathy, a reminder that we were still family despite the wounds that ran deep. The lesson I learned throughout this journey, it was big. First and foremost, I realized the immense importance of choosing a life partner who stood by you in both good and trying times. My wife was that unwavering support, a beacon of understanding and strength when I needed it most. In the process, I also gleaned valuable wisdom that I felt compelled to share with others. I hope every parent reading this learns a lesson and does not manipulate their children in the name of tradition, faith, or anything else for that matter. Such manipulation, I had seen firsthand, could lead to an estrangement and a heartache. The strength of a family lies in its love, not in the dictates imposed upon by its members. Anyways, as the story of my life continues to unfold, the lessons learned and the choices made led to a newfound understanding. There was a healing power in empathy and forgiveness, and perhaps one day my family would find its way back to a place of harmony. But for now, I was content knowing that I've chosen a path that reflected the values I held dear, guided by the support of a loving partner. That's all you can ask for in life.
So I was reading some of the comments of today's story, and I was blown away. Everybody was against OP's parents, and the reason is because they were saying it wasn't even their true intentions to get OP to come back to their lifestyle. No, they could care less in reality. They were using OP because of the debt that OP's father had. Guys, I want to know your exact thoughts on this story because, man, I did not see some of these things that happened to come. I want to know your exact thoughts, guys. Drop it downstairs in our comment section. If you guys are new to the channel, I want to welcome you and thank you for joining me on today's stories. My name's Mr. Reddito, and I narrate stories every single day. If you guys want more daily videos, the best way to get them is super simple. Hit that subscribe button. You can find it right underneath this video. I'll see you tomorrow. I just want you to have a fantastic day and go after something in life that you've always wanted to try. And remember, it's cool to be kind. I'll see you later.